We have a rapid test now, which results in 15 minutes.
Wow, that is last time it was 7 days for CDC and then 48 hours for the other?
Yeah.
Wow.
15 minutes. It's not as sensitive to the virus as the longer term tests. So what we're doing is this rapid test, if they're symptomatic, because we're finding if they aren't symptomatic, that their viral load is low enough.
The Boom Show is produced by the team at Burg CrossFit. So please don't sue us. All of the recordings and materials in this podcast are for educational purposes only and should not be considered as a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Let's just get smarter and sweat together. Cool? All right, let's go.
What's up? Good morning, afternoon. We just crossed the noon hour, so I guess it would be considered afternoon. My name is Amy, or Coach Amy, for those of you that know me in the gym. I am here with Kierra. She is one of our lovely members. She is also a nurse down at Ohio State Medical Center, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you have listened to our previous episode on the coronavirus, we are doing kind of like a part deux of her episode, which was very informative. I got a lot of really good feedback from that. And this is probably 4 weeks after that, 5 weeks after that episode?
Yeah, something
like that. Cool. So first of all, welcome to the show, the Boom Show. And maybe we'll put this on the Nasty Girls too, who knows? She's wearing her Nasty Girls t-shirt. You can't see that because you guys are not on this call, but whatever. So this is about 5 or 6 weeks post that call, and I believe that was maybe like a week into it or something like that. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you for, I know you're busy as ever. So talk to us about the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks. How have those been? Because last time we spoke, it was kind of like, I think it was right before that week that was supposed to be the peak week,
Yeah.
And it was dead in the hospital. I think that was like the last update we had. So kind of update us from then until now.
Yeah, so a lot has changed. At first, there were only a few floors that were open and taking these patients. It was mostly my floor and then the ICUs. So what happened was that the prison system just went up in flames as far as the coronavirus goes. Like the guards got it, the inmates got it. So we had 4 floors that were open taking coronavirus patients, and 3 of them were completely occupied by inmates.
Boy.
Yeah. And
first of all, really quick, I want to ask you, can you go into I want to get people's minds wrapped around what it takes to make a floor coronavirus, you know what I mean? So if I go to a hospital, if I go to one floor and it's this way and I go to your floor, what's the difference? How much time and effort does it take to, what is the precautions and amount of work that has to be done to get it to be a coronavirus floor, I guess?
Gotcha. So it may look very similar. The only difference is that all the doors are shut. So to try and keep the coronavirus in that room, which I don't know.
You mean to quarantine it?
Oh yeah. So we try to divide it. So a coronavirus floor is going to be all coronavirus. And then a non-coronavirus floor would either have people who may be suspected or who definitely don't have it. If they're suspected and we test them and they're positive, they go to a coronavirus floor. And that's just to prevent cross-contamination. So, a nurse gets something on her shoe, she goes into the room, the patient drops a pen, the nurse picks it up, the coronavirus is now on the floor, so then it's on the pen, then the patient licks their finger to turn a page and now they have it. So it's
Right.
to prevent that progression of things. There are isolation carts outside of, well, it was outside of every room, but we ran out of isolation carts, which it's not a big deal. I don't want it to sound like, it's not like running out of vents or anything. It's just multiple
Google how to buy an isolation cart for Kierra.
The isolation carts are just a cart that holds like the gowns and gloves.
Got it.
So we have the gowns and gloves. We just don't have the specific receptacle that holds the gowns and gloves. And so we're sharing the same cart between multiple rooms, not the same PPE. We have enough PPE for our patients. But so the nurses, before they go in, they have to wear either an N95 mask or a respirator, which kind of looks like a Darth Vader mask.
Which I'll be honest, that's terrifying. I had a couple nightmares. So I have asthma, and I obviously like I had to get an inhaler recently, and that, not to go on a tangent here, but or make it about myself. But anyway, I had to go and do a virtual like doctor's visit, and he was like, "You need to go get tested," and blah blah blah. And I feel like I texted you about this, or I don't know who I texted about it, of like, so you need to get tested. He's like, if you get an inhaler, it won't work if you have coronavirus and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, I promise you, I've had asthma since I was a kid. Like, I know it's like, I know the signs. Like, so that was a nightmare itself. But anyway, it made me have nightmares for like probably like 3 or 4 days about being in a hospital and nurses coming in the room in like full Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And like, that must be the most terrifying. I can't imagine anything more scary and more isolating than that. I mean, I know you guys are just trying to do your best, but like, can you imagine, like, you don't know what the hell's going on. And then you have all these, can't even see their faces.
Yeah.
Well, terrifying.
It's even worse. Like, we're getting a lot of patients from nursing homes right now. And so a lot of them like have dementia or Alzheimer's. So can you imagine?
Oh my God, no.
They're like, oh my God, someone's trying to come and kill me.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, honestly, if we didn't have to wear it, I wouldn't. I mean, to protect myself, I would, but it is very isolating for the patients, and it is very scary for the patients. And I think seeing us in that, it just makes it even more scary, and it kind of makes them feel dirty too.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just that we're trying to protect ourselves.
For sure.
So we wear the mask, we wear either a face shield or goggles, and we wear a gown and gloves when we go in. So it takes time to put all that stuff on. And then we're also required to wear just like normal surgical masks when we're not in the rooms, just to protect ourselves from each other.
Yeah.
So to take that off and then put the N95 on, and then the gown, gloves, and then the face shield, and go in, and then to take it all off and wash your hands before you put it all back on and go in a different room. It takes a lot of time. So I actually, when I got off work yesterday morning, we had 2 patient falls overnight because they started to get up, and we put bed alarms on people. So it alerts us when they're trying to get up if they're a fall risk. And so in both cases, the nurse, one being me, and, the other patient nurse, ran to the door and were like, sit down, we're coming, wait a minute. But by the time that we got in the room, they had fallen. So it's frustrating. It's really demoralizing as a nurse because we can't do we're doing our best, but we're not nursing to the standard that we normally hold ourselves.
Yeah. Like, to summarize, I feel like it's out of your control.
Yeah.
And it makes you look like you're not trying to help when you are trying to help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I posted a video of a nurse practitioner that was, trying to be a voice for someone on the front lines. And she was giving a lot of information, and a lot of what she said had truth to it, but it was sensationalized, or the rationale wasn't explained. So she was saying that people are going from 6 liters of oxygen in a nasal cannula through their nose to being intubated. And we were following that for the first few weeks, but then the data showed that the ventilation was causing lung injury. So we try to prevent them from getting on the ventilators now. So we go up to like 15 liters of oxygen through their nose. And we try to prone them, which is basically just making them lay on their belly before we advance to like intubating them and putting them on a ventilator. But we would normally do like CPAP or BiPAP, which is basically a machine that blows air in through your nose or mouth to force oxygen into your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
We normally would try those things before we went to intubation. And she did bring that up, that we're not doing those things. And that's true because those things aerosolize the virus. So,
Right.
So it's basically causing the virus to just spray out everywhere in the air. And so then it puts the nurses at risk, it puts the doctors at risk, it puts the other patients at risk. So it's for the greater good that we're not doing those things. But
I think she kind of made it sound like you guys weren't doing it because.
Yeah, because
Okay.
she was making it seem like, well, it's just easier to deal with a sedated and intubated patient than it is to deal with a patient on a CPAP or BiPAP. So they're just doing it for convenience. And that's not the case.
Right. And I think that, and we'll talk about this further in depthly, but, you know, we talked about opinions before we got on here and everyone's opinions and you know, we're not going to get into it too much because Kierra obviously is just one nurse out of hundreds that have their opinions too. But, you know, I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there as far as like clinically, like the facts. And we'll talk about that later on, just like maybe how people can differentiate like what is real and what is not, as far as like you're concerned, because you're a nurse, you know the science. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that when you actually intubate someone, it's like the most dangerous, you know, for everyone around. And I've seen videos on how they do it, and they have to literally, I mean, I don't know if they do it where you are, but they put like the plexiglass in front, and then you got like nurses trying to like work around it, and it's kind of like a hot mess. And so a lot of people don't even know that. But that's good that you guys are kind of doing your due diligence. I guess sometimes you can't help. It's kind of like, you know, since this is a podcast for the gym, I would say it's probably similar to all the lovely nutrition posts and fitness posts that I know are kind of like just complete BS, and you know it is, but you can't really like call people out unless you're me and you have a problem with that. But anyway, that's fine. That's fine. All right. So we were talking about your floor. So you were saying you had 3 floors devoted to the inmates, right? For the prison system, because that got out of control. So continue on that kind of path. Sorry, I went on a huge tangent.
It's all good. So our floor right now, just by luck of the draw, is not really taking the prison population. So we do have a lot of nursing home patients, like a few nursing homes had some outbreaks. So we have a lot of those patients, which is, it's really hard because it's so heartbreaking. A lot of these nursing home patients, they have decided to be what they call comfort care. So that means that if they were to pass, or if their heart were to stop, or they were to stop breathing, they don't want us to do CPR and try to revive them, because they know that the outcome that their quality of life,
right,
more important than their quantity of life. So we are seeing more death, but it's not these traumatic deaths where we're like coding people and trying to save them. It's, you know, these patients know that they don't want that. But it's still very difficult, because normally in those cases, the family's at the bedside.
Yeah. Oh.
The family's at the bedside. And, you know, as a nurse, we are trained in end of life care and how to provide that care. And immediately prior to this pandemic, I actually had my first patient death. which is quite a blessing because I've been a nurse for 4 years, and to have only one patient death is amazing.
Yeah.
But I felt like a good nurse because I was able to be in there with the family. They were at the bedside. They were holding his hand. I got to go in and say, like, you know, I know that this is not your husband or your dad, the person that's in the bed. Tell me about your husband or your dad. Tell me about what he's like before he was sick. And so it was very therapeutic. But right now the families can't see, they can't come in. Nurses are using their personal cell phones to FaceTime with family members so that they can say goodbye. And it's very hard. It's very heart-wrenching. And, you know, we want to be in there. So this is a really sad story. We had a couple, a married couple. One of them was comfort care. The other one is a full code because she was doing a lot better clinically. And she came from the ICU and got to say goodbye to her husband. But she told us that she didn't want to know if he passed because her family can't handle losing both of their parents.
Wow.
And she would lose the will to live if she knew that he had passed.
Like she wouldn't keep fighting.
Yeah. So she, you know, I had him and I was able to, I went in and I held his hand and I kind of like stroked his head and was just telling him, like, we're taking care of your wife. She's safe. You know, we're going to take care of you as much as we can. We're going to make this transition as comfortable as we can for you. Just let us know what you need and we'll be in here for you. So we're doing the best we can. It is a very emotional time, but there's also a lot of hope throughout this. Like we had a patient that has been with us for probably like 6 weeks. She went to the ICU because she had to have some additional treatment. And yesterday, early in the morning, like 2 a.m. or something, she had been tested negative for the coronavirus after she had been positive for like 6 weeks. So we got to move her to a different floor.
Oh,
and
awesome.
We, like, all the nurses at the nurses station were like clapping as we were wheeling her to a different floor because it hasn't happened very often yet, but
yeah, that's insane. I mean, like, that's got to be so fulfilling, you know, like, you know, it's kind of, there's two sides, you know, you can't have one without the other. And unfortunately, as a nurse, you see a lot of the other, and it's so awesome when you get to see somebody actually get to go back to their family and, you know, not potentially come back. So I wanted to ask you about testing and if that's gotten any different in the time since we've spoken.
Yeah, so testing has changed dramatically since the time that we spoke. We have a rapid test now, which results in 15 minutes.
Wow, that is so, last time it was what, 7 days for CDC and then 48 hours for the other?
Yeah.
Wow.
15 minutes. It's not as sensitive to the virus as the longer term tests. So what we're doing is this rapid test, if they're symptomatic, because we're finding if they aren't symptomatic, that their viral load is low enough that the test won't catch it. So we do the rapid test. If it comes back positive, then automatically they're in isolation when they're suspected. But if it comes back positive, then we're like, okay, you get the diagnosis, you have coronavirus. If it comes back negative, then we test with a different test that takes up to 48 hours to result. That's more sensitive. Mm-hmm. And then if that comes back negative, then we know that you're negative and we can like send you to a different floor. If it comes back positive, then, you know, we diagnose you with COVID. But the testing has greatly improved. Like, we're able to test more people. I'm pretty sure that the emergency department is testing everybody that comes in. So that has improved a lot. OSU was able to 3D print the swabs that we need.
Oh, wow.
So we are getting the 3D printed swabs, so we're not running out of those. And then they also were able to create their own recipe for a reagent, which is the liquid medium that we put the swab into to run it to the lab. And so we have enough of those as well. So in the Columbus area, we are very blessed that almost anybody who needs to be swabbed can be swabbed. Other more rural areas are not as lucky. But Ohio State.
But statistically, though, you could say that that's kind of like, I don't want to say like, okay, but statistically, if you're in a very rural area, chances are probably good for you.
Yeah. Well, and the treatment, if for the majority of people who have it, it's like a cold or the flu. So if that's the case and they think that you could possibly have it, it's the same thing, you know, drink plenty of fluids,
right.
Isolate yourself from others. So they just tell you, if you think you have it, then do those things. Whereas like for us, diagnosis is more important because it determines how we treat a patient. So the sick patients that need the tests are getting the tests. And we're able to treat them based on their diagnosis. So testing has improved greatly. We have a lot of clinical trials that we're doing as well and having really promising results.
You don't hear about that on the news, do you?
I know.
And we'll talk about that in just a second.
So the first one was, the first clinical trial that kind of took off pretty much everywhere because President Trump kind of publicized the hydroxychloroquine, which is a medication used primarily in the United States. It's used for autoimmune diseases like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. In other countries, it's used to treat malaria. So we've had mixed results with that. There is a drug that was originally intended to treat HIV that they're using. I can't remember the exact name of it right now, but they're trying that and they're having pretty good results with that. One clinical trial that we're doing right now on my floor is called inhaled nitric oxide. So they blow nitric oxide in with the oxygen that the patient is on, and it has some antiviral properties, but its main mechanism of action is to vasodilate the capillaries in the lungs to help patient absorb more of the oxygen that they're getting. And we've had really good results with that. And then the other one that we just did over the weekend was the convalescent plasma exchange. So giving patients plasma from someone who's already had the virus.
Oh, wow.
To get antibodies to help them fight the virus. So we've done that as well. So we're getting a lot more, the longer that it goes, the more information that we're getting so that we can treat patients better. So, you know, the first few weeks of this, like I said, we were intubating everybody because we thought that was what was best. And then we're getting the information that that's not what's best. And so we're putting into practice, we're proning people, which is having them lay on their bellies to help their lungs expand better. And we're having a lot better outcomes now, the more information that we have.
Yeah. And which is, you know, that's with anything in life. And like, I think we expect a little bit too much. I mean, doctors and nurses are practicing medicine, you know, you guys, it's just like if somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, my shoulder has been bothering me. And I have to do a lot more digging to kind of figure out, and maybe I do give them the wrong diagnosis or the wrong exercise or I think it's the wrong thing, but we're just kind of like figuring it out. Same way everybody else is and their jobs that they're doing. So the problem is like, we kind of expect you guys to like know what to do. You know, it's like, well, it's not that, especially with something that's so if you watch any news channel and you weren't as socially aware, you would be petrified. I mean, like if God didn't bless me with such an investigative mind, I think I would probably be one of those people underneath my bed, right now, like praying, thinking that the 7 plagues are coming in and Jesus is about to come down and take us up,
Yeah.
But anyway, so I want to talk about that. It's like, I obviously, and we talked about this a little bit before we got on, but everybody has, and this is kind of the same way I feel about how people vote too, everyone has their opinions based on like how this is affecting them personally.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're a nurse, you see the worst of the worst, you're going to feel one way, rightfully so, probably a lot more realistic than most people. I run a small business, so I'm going to feel one way. I run a gym where to me, it's absolutely ludicrous that a gym cannot open, a studio gym, but a Target can open, and there's people everywhere. I mean, I went to Kroger on Sunday. It is insane. It's insane. So it's like, to me, I'm like, so we're allowing people to buy cigarettes and Lay's potato chips, but okay. Anyway, so that's my opinion, right? Someone who is a mom of 3 that's like, obviously got the hardest job in the world, but may not have the same opinion as me or you, because in her world, she's like, dude, I'm homeschooling. Like, I'm like about to lose my mind. So they have their opinion, and it's hard to kind of find that balance of like being sensitive, but not being too insensitive. And then you see, like, I'll give you an example. And that's why I asked you that question about like how hard it is to convert a floor, because I watched like a 20-minute episode of something on YouTube, and it showed obviously Ground Zero in New York, which is like per capita. I mean, we're talking like statistically, most cities are not going to be
right
level. And I mean, there was plastic everywhere, and like, I mean, it looked like a scene from like Rescue 911. You're definitely too young to know what that show is, but like just the most insane pandemic like Netflix like documentary I've ever seen in my life. Like, if I just saw that and that was the only thing I saw for this whole thing, I would be like, we are doomed, right? So, not even in your opinion, but just like to help others who are kind of struggling with the same thing. There's people who are like, okay, I'm not wearing a mask. Like, I wash my hands. I'm not touching my face. I'm staying away from you. Just stop shaming me. And there's the other half who are like, I have a dad who has, cystic fibrosis, and like, this is something I take really serious, and why are you out in public? And then you have the healthcare professional who feels one way. And like, how would you give advice as far as for the mom and the dad or the uncle or the business owner or the, kid or whatever, to differentiate between facts and sensationalism? Because I feel like there's 2 parties right now. I feel like, and that's how it is really in everything else, right? It's like, there's one half of the population who feels one way, and kind of one half of the population feels the other way. But how do you find a common ground with and still be informed?
Yeah. So that's the big struggle right now, because you can only base your decisions based off of your experience and the information that you have.
Right.
So my big thing is to just kind of comfort everybody. Like, we are collectively going through this together. So we are all experiencing the same thing. We're not experiencing it the same way, but we're experiencing the same thing. And we will get through this collectively because we have to. But the other part is, and I've been telling people this on my floor, my friends, is check your privilege. Because for me, my privilege is financial right now, because I have not been financially impacted. I'm not furloughed. My hours haven't been cut. I'm not working for a small business. I'm not losing my small business. So for me, it's easy to say like, no, we need to keep the economy closed so that we can get a better handle on this and decrease the exposure. But that's coming from my place of financial privilege, whereas someone else who is young, healthy, And a business owner is, their place of privilege is like, well, if I get it, I'm going to be fine. And so trying to find the common middle ground, which I think that, we talked about this earlier. I think that small businesses, having been closed for the past 8 weeks, they have all, for the most part, developed a plan for how to safely reopen.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I think it was necessary in the beginning to, one, emphasize the importance and the danger of the situation, and to allow people to develop a plan. But I think that now that they have developed a plan, we can start to safely reopen. The goal was never to stop the virus. Like, once it's here, it's here.
Right.
We're going to have to deal with it. Everyone is we're going to have to develop herd immunity, which is where the vast majority of the population is immune to the virus. Ideally, we do that through vaccines. That's, why we get so many vaccines. That's why we don't have polio right now, because everyone's vaccinated against it. So we're not passing it to each other because we're vaccinated against it. So that's a controlled way, because we don't have the luxury of having a vaccine right now. It's the way that we're getting the herd immunity is through exposure. And we're trying to slow down the rate that people are getting it, so that we have the resources to treat people that get it and would have bad outcomes. And as we progress towards reopening, we're going to see waves of people getting it. When we're going to see like probably little mini spikes. Everyone that shops at Target, if someone has it at Target, there's going to be like a little mini.
Don't you think that's more of a personal, so I'm more on the side of like, it's your responsibility. It's not the government's. It's not. So would you agree or disagree that it's kind of like your responsibility as an adult to know whether or not you should stay home or not, as far as when we do reopen, if you are someone with a compromised immune system, or if you are someone with it, you're feeling sick, it's kind of your responsibility to stay home.
Absolutely.
That's what quarantine means, right? Quarantine means to keep the sickness inside, and healthy people are, whatever.
So there are 3 different things that are kind of being used interchangeably. And I think that that's what's kind of confusing people. So there's isolation, which is like, I'm sick, so I'm going to isolate. I'm going to stay in my room by myself, have as minimal exposure to anyone as possible. There's quarantine, which is you've been exposed, but you may not have it. So you're going to, you quarantine yourself in your home. You have limited exposure to other people. You may or may not be sick, but you are quarantining yourself to prevent potentially infecting other people. And then there's the social distancing, which is in the stay-at-home order, which is kind of a mix of quarantine because you may or may not have it, and we're asking you to stay at home. But also, there are exceptions to the stay-at-home order for those who need to leave. So I think that can be confusing. I think that business owners or managers have a responsibility to develop a plan to open safely. But I think beyond that, it is a personal responsibility. If you feel sick, you need to hold yourself accountable and stay home and know that you might infect others. And like I said with you, I personally, if the gym opens, I may not come back right away just because I have a higher risk job as far as being exposed.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I don't want to expose other people. So I may hold back before I come. And I think we need to make plans for people who are immunocompromised or in a high risk group who don't feel comfortable rejoining the rest of the world. I think that we need to kind of give them some leeway.
Right.
So if they don't feel comfortable coming back to work, we need to allow them to continue to have the unemployment, or continue to provide, in the gym's case, continue to provide the Zoom classes so that, they can still get their service without having to risk their lives. I think we need to make, you know, contingency plans for those things, but ultimately it is, everyone has to get immune to it at some point or another. And we're really hoping to develop a vaccine and for it to be a controlled exposure situation with good outcomes, versus, you know, having people sick and in the hospital. But at the end of the day, like, everyone's going to have to be exposed one way or the other. And we're just trying to control it and have the most amount of people, you know, alive and healthy and well.
Yeah, I agree. And for those of you that just heard that and are kind of like, I wonder what Burg's doing, we actually have done that as of today. By the time this comes out, actually we've done it a couple weeks ago. I'm really proud of the staff and the coaches here that I work for, because day one when we closed, they put their nose to the grindstone and we got a lot done. I know a lot of people are like, what are you guys doing? Like, the gym's not open. And I'm like, man, we are so busy. So if you are not comfortable with coming back to the gym, and if you have a family member who, you know, wants to join the gym and doesn't want to join a gym right now, totally understandably so, or you have someone that lives in like Wyoming, who lives in Wyoming, but
my grandparents actually lived in Wyoming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just pulled that right out of the hat. I was like, I've never, like, it's one of those states that you're like, New Hampshire? Like, who lives there? Yeah. So anyway, if you have a family member, you know, that you know can benefit from fitness, we've actually created multiple memberships with all kinds of options. We have like, we're going to start a nutrition challenge coming up, and that's for anybody in the world. And then also a fitness portion to coincide with that for 28 days. And that's that you get your own class 3 times a week, specifically for that nutrition challenge, anywhere you live, anywhere you reside. We have 2 different kinds of memberships that are all virtual. And then if you're just a plain old member, like if you just were a member at the gym and then we reopen and you know, because there's going to be a lot of people, you know, we're going to have to cap the classes. So we can't run 12 classes a day. So there are going to be people that just can't make it, right? Because there's already 10 people at that class, et cetera, et cetera. So if that happens, we are still going to continue the Zoom classes and still going to continue the YouTube link to where you can watch the pre-recorded videos. And we're still going to continue our Zoom stuff and all that good stuff. So there's been a lot of, you know, and that is the beauty of our country and of human beings, is you kind of like, when shit hits the fan, you know, it's like all the positive things that have come out of this and your job, you know, with all the like testing that's shown successful. And you kind of see the human spirit is like, you don't really have time to sit around and think about it. You're just like, well, you know, there was a lot of gyms who, God bless them, but I think they didn't think this was going to last for a while. And unfortunately, they were kind of late to the game. And, you know, all of our business mentors that we have kind of said, hey, you know, you need to plan for like August. You need to plan like as if this was like your new normal. And the positive side of this is we're actually going to be able to help more people now, because we've developed the virtual platform for our gym. And now those of you guys who love Burg, myself included, I was a member once, anybody can join. Anybody in the entire world can join our gym, which to me is like such a huge accomplishment. And it came out of like a pandemic, you know, like, you know, 6 months ago, either one of us, if you would have sat us down and been like, this is going to happen in 6 months, we'd probably been like, okay, you know, you're going to have a complete virtual online gym. Basically, you're going to have this 3,000 square foot room that nobody's in for like 3 months, you know, that so, and I'm really proud of all the members, you know, and a lot of them have taken this time to personally challenge themselves to come out fitter and smarter. And, you know, it takes a little while. Sometimes you get caught in a rut, myself included, where you're just like kind of down in the dumps. But then a lot of people have kind of turned over a new leaf and made an ultimatum and going to try to come out of this quarantine healthier or wiser or something than they were before. So to kind of wrap things up, what is the outlook? Like, what do you feel this is going to end up being? You know, like there's in California, you know, some of the gyms that are in our kind of mentorship group that we talk to a lot, they're not open until August.
Yeah.
So like, what is the difference between that? Like, what does it look like as a state in Ohio, and like globally, like what do you envision the next like year to be like?
Yeah. Man, it's so hard just because we only know what we know, and we're learning every single day. I really, really hope that boutique gyms, which that sounds so bougie, I don't know, like,
Oh, we are so bougie, girl.
but I think smaller gyms that are able to, you know, that are able to cap classes and are able to make sure that members maintain that 6 foot distance. I think that those should reopen. I'm sad that they aren't reopening this go round, but I hope that they're going to reopen them by the end of May, hopefully before June. I don't know, I'm not making decisions, but I think that Burg, like I said, I've said to you and I've said to other people, I was like, oh no, the gym can't open. There's no way that the gym like, that's one of the easiest ways to catch it. Like, people are breathing heavy, they're, you know,
Right.
have it. But then I read the post about everything, all the different measures that are being put into place to allow members to work out while also maintaining the social distance and, you know, protecting people. And I was like, well, I'm very glad that I am not a gym owner, because I would have just given up. And
It's a lot.
and I am so glad that there are people who are more creative. Like, clearly I'm a nurse for a reason, and clearly you're a manager for a reason, because, you know, I follow orders and protocols, and you are thinking outside the box about how to get people back in the box. And
that's a good t-shirt idea.
Yeah. And I think that Burg has one of the best plans that I have heard of any business, not even a gym, just of any business being able to safely reopen.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's my personal opinion, based on my own experiences. But I was actually reflecting earlier this morning about CrossFit and the pandemic, and I like wrote down some things that honestly, I think that the two things that have prepared me the most for this pandemic are nursing school, obviously, but CrossFit, because I would not physically be able to do what I'm doing if it weren't for CrossFit. So I told you the story about the patient falling, but I was able to lift him off the floor by myself and put him back in bed.
Wow.
I just went behind him and I looped my arms under his and just like deadlifted him straight up.
You were like, okay, triple extension, here we go.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. But I was able to do that on my own, which means that someone else, you know, that saves a PPE exposure. That saves a PPE usage, that saves someone else from potentially being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big deal. And I've been able to, people will like slide down to the foot of the bed. I've been able to pull them up myself, because I know the body mechanics better now that I've been working with CrossFit. So I can go to the head of the bed and just kind of pull them myself versus having to ask someone else to help me boost them.
Yeah.
There was a situation where a different floor I thought needed a crash cart. I overreacted. They had their own crash cart. Should have known that. But so I ran from downstairs to upstairs, got the crash cart and ran it to the other floor, like literally running the whole way. And I think back to before I started CrossFit, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have had to stop and walk. And then also like breathing through a mask. A lot of people are claustrophobic. And so like having the N95s, it's difficult to breathe. But I learned how to breathe through Karen. So,
so walk in the park.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then one of the best things that you can do to have a good outcome if you do have coronavirus is to have healthy lungs. And CrossFit or running or any cardiovascular, that's inflating your lungs to their full capacity, well, almost their full capacity scientifically, but their full capacity functionally.
Right.
And so it's preventing you from getting pneumonia, which is one of the things that's the thing for the most part that's actually killing people, is the pneumonia that they develop from the virus. So I really hope that the gym can open, because I think it's going to help me to be a better nurse. I think that the community has been awesome. Ross's company, Evil Coffee Company, has donated multiple bags of coffee to our floor. Natalie, one of our members, sent me a headband. A lot of people
with the buttons.
I don't think
Have you seen those?
I have.
Those are so cool.
Yeah. And then they're also checking on me, making sure, like, my friends that aren't in healthcare, they're like, are you drinking? Like, are you having a glass of wine when you get home to unwind? And it's like, well, I feel like that's a really slippery slope for some people.
Yeah.
Whereas Burg people are reaching out and they're like, are you getting good sleep? Are you prioritizing workouts? Are you meal prepping?
Mm-hmm.
The true self-care things. So
right.
As much as I dislike that this pandemic happened, it's really shown a lot of positives and has made me appreciate CrossFit and Burg more than I did before this, which I didn't think was possible. But I really hope that we reopen. I think it's very important that we reopen.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, and thank you for those kind words. I'm sure everybody would appreciate hearing that. But I think CrossFit isn't really a special thing. What it does is it facilitates the natural human yearning for connection. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's not necessarily CrossFit. It's just a great breeding ground for that. Mm-hmm. And everything else in our lives does the opposite, right? Social media, it's actually very isolating, even though you're so connected. All of our jobs, there's nothing that celebrates that community. And I think people genuinely want to do those things. Excuse me. But in most avenues of your life, you're looked at as like weird, or like, whoa, relax with the, I don't know, high fives and the like fist bumps. Okay. But I'm so glad. And I think that's why people like you and like all of our other members, once you find it, you're like, oh yeah, it's because it's like that missing link of connection that we all lacked in our lives before we kind of found it. And, it's kind of similar to like a church or like something along those lines of like where you get a group of people, similar values, similar beliefs. What you thought was self-care 5 years ago is not self-care right now. And it's like, it's just amazing to see like the change in people before to like what is coping then and what is coping now. And the more the better. There's so many times in life where we choose to turn the other way instead of actually going into that, why am I doing this? Why am I not working out? Is it because like I don't feel like I'd be successful? Do I not have the right tools? And so I'm so thankful that it's, been able to help you in your career. And we've had one of our other members, JD, I don't know if you've met him. He's a police officer, and he sent us a video probably a month ago about, and he's already okayed me to share the story, but about a month ago, he got into a scuffle with a guy he was arresting, and he said that he knows 100% if it wasn't for his fitness and CrossFit, that there's no way that he would have felt comfortable going into that. And like that right there to me is like, okay, cool. Day made. I don't need to work anymore. Like that's all I need. Hearing stories like you and him saying stuff like that is so fulfilling. We can get caught up in, excuse my language, just the dumb shit of life that really doesn't mean anything. And then that to me is like, who cares about like, I don't know. There's just so many things that you can spend your energy on and focus on. And to me, I would love to hyper focus on people like you and JD and other people, one of our members, Paul, 74, he does CrossFit. Get out of here. You know what I mean? And those are the people I want to focus on. So I'm so thankful that CrossFit brought all these people here. And to any CrossFit gym in the world, like it's not just us. You go into most CrossFit gyms and you're going to get the same kind of helping hand and like acceptance and things like that. So anyway, all right, we are going to wrap this up because Kierra and I can talk for a million hours. So we're going to get off. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Hopefully this will air soon. Today we recorded, it's Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. Oh man, I love tacos.
And it's Taco Tuesday.
Dude, let's go. I'm saving some carbs for some taco shells later, girl. So if you have any questions for Kierra, please message us at Burg. We'll make sure to give those to her, and maybe we'll do like a trilogy edition of this interview, and we'll bring you on when all things are good, or you will have some more updates for us. But other than that, thank you so much for coming on, and we are hoping that we can get a move on opening up soon. But until then, you guys stay safe, be smart, stay informed, and we will see you next week. Have an awesome day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode on The Boom Show, produced by the team at Burg CrossFit. Whether you're local to one of our locations or just love what we do, we would love to invite you to check out our in-house and digital offerings at www.burgcrossfit.com. Whether you're feeling a bit stagnant, you feel like the quarantine is getting to your midline, or whatever the case may be, we would love to chat with you about how we at Burg CrossFit might be able to best serve and support you in this time. So head to our website, schedule a free, no sweat virtual chat with us, and we'll see if we are a good fit for you. And if we're not, hopefully we'll be able to point you in the right direction to get you back on track and to keep you crushing your goals. Thanks so much for checking us out, and we'll talk to you soon.